Henny Penny. Do you remember Henny Penny?
The chicken?
Yeah, the sky's falling.
Oh, yes.
The market's falling.
Oh, I see where you're going with this now. Yes, I'm aware.
Is that giving away my age? I mean, I know I got the Shoppers Drug Mart discount. You have no idea how I just, went on about that. But I digress. Okay, so we were having a bit of a conversation before we started, and Richard was here, and we were talking about fallen deals and whatnot. So for real estate agents, if we want to go in and look at the market, what's happening, on our back end, you have over to the right market monitor. You can go down in the right-hand corner.
Yep.
And grab the stats.
Yep.
And you can change your date.
Yes.
So today I changed the date, so we're 17 days into October.
Yep.
So for 17 days into October, when I checked it, there were 1,082 homes on the market. So out of that, we had 272 new listings. And I only look at single families as well.
Yes.
272 new listings. There were 273 price changes.
Wow.
Out of the 1,082 homes, right? 99 homes have sold so far for the month of October. And we're right in the middle of the month.
We're right in the middle, yep.
Yeah, that's really low.
It is.
That's only 9% of the inventory that's out there that's selling. So I knew there were 99 sold. Mm-hmm. There was also, oddly enough, 99 conditional deals. So that's 200, right? Mm-hmm. Or a little, almost 200. And then there were 19 terminated deals. So meaning,
a fifth, basically.
Yeah, correct.
So 20%.
So that's where I'm getting the stats from. So the terminated deals.
Let's talk about those.
Yeah. Talk to me. What are your thoughts?
I have thoughts. My own opinions.
Are we I just ranted with Richard. Are we ranting again?
Can we?
Yes, we can.
All right. So these are just our thoughts and feelings.
Yeah.
I find that the agent that I'm working with whether I'm on the buying representing side or the selling side matters a lot, because from what I'm experiencing on either side of the deal right now is that when you have someone that maybe hasn't experienced an even playing field, which is I think more where we're at right now.
Correct. Yeah.
They don't necessarily know, in my opinion, how to coach their client. And maybe their seller has to give a little because something isn't discovered that they didn't know about, right?
Correct.
And I think that a big part of being successful in a deal is getting it to the end. Like, who cares? Anything. The sold sign needs to go up.
Regardless.
The deal needs to get firm, or else not a success, right? And I think that there's a lot of people that don't have maybe the coaching skills, maybe the experience to walk through these things, and maybe they're making promises they can't deliver on. Maybe, for example, a buyer's agent might, they might, on the entry level of the market where we still have some competition, because it's limited product.
Yep.
The stuff that's selling below the average price point. Maybe the agents are putting down bigger numbers and promising their client, oh, don't worry, you won't be paying that amount because we're going to come back on inspection. But the sellers are going, we had competition. If you don't like what you see, or if you are going to come back on things that, there's some legitimate items that come up. Sometimes not so much, or, you don't see eye to eye on what's legitimate.
Yeah.
And I think that from what I'm seeing, I think that sometimes the issue comes from the negotiation part and the expectations, setting up the negotiations, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and this is when I'm sitting down talking with the seller. So during COVID, we had 700 new agents come to the market. And they don't have to be young. It was just 700 new agents, and of all ages, who would have come to the market, who either A, never owned a home, never been in sales before. And let's talk about COVID in general. Like, people were isolated and people were more recluse. They're in their phones. So that means less communication, therefore little negotiation. And the smallest thing, a deal is dying, as opposed to, hey, how can we make a deal work? How can we get your seller happy? my buyer happy, how do we get to home plate?
Yep.
And those are discussions are not happening because you know what? A seller looks on Instagram, oh, so-and-so has 6,000 views on a listing. Pretty is not going to get you to home plate.
Yeah.
And so those are the conversations that I'm having. And I'm all about video because I was one of the first ones that started it. But my video of your house, welcome to 123 Street, is not going to get you sold.
Yeah, I mean, and that's only one of the parts. Like even if that happened to bring you the buyer, doesn't get the sold sign up, right?
No.
That might get you to contract. That's
Yes.
only step one.
So I would tell you that because I've only started doing those stats the way I'm doing them now recently. However, so for the month of out of the deals that were written, so in September, there were 916 deals that were written. So that would be what was sold, what went conditional, and what terminated, right? Out of the 916 deals that were written, you have 93 of them terminated. So that's around 26%, I believe, when I did the math.
Of how many deals?
916. And 93 deals terminated.
10%?
10. I thought it was a little bit more. Or maybe, hold on, a percent of inventory. Okay, so let's just talk about that. Why deals are falling? Home inspection. What other reasons would you say?
Not having proper financing in order. And this is where you and I are going to probably have a little bit of a potentially difference of opinion, because I think like a pre-approval letter, I don't think is worth weight. I do think knowing that, like if I say to you, Sandra, you know, who are your people with? And you're like, it's with so-and-so, great.
I'm fine.
I'm fine. I'm not going to be like, give me your letter. No, that part of the communication I need to know, but I think people are producing letters because so many agents are requiring letters, and the letters are not worth the paper they're printed on.
So this is my thought.
Yeah.
And I say to my seller, you know what? I'm asking for a pre-approval letter. Can a deal still fall on a pre-approval letter? Yep, it can. However, for me, I just need to know that the buyer's in the process.
Yeah.
Like that they didn't just go on a mortgage calculator and say, okay, based on your $100,000 income, you can buy a house at $550,000, but they didn't take in their debt service ratio.
Yeah.
So I need to know that they're actually with a legitimate person.
Yeah.
That's the only reason why I'm asking.
Yeah. Which I think because of the different companies, different brokers and things, I think it's super easy to get a pre-approval. That's not even, it's more like a pre-qual than a pre-approval. Like it's more similar to the calculator thing, even if it is attached to a person, like, you know, because they haven't verified, you know, it's that nurse that says that they make $180,000, but that's with, you know, $60,000 of overtime or whatever.
Yeah.
And so it's not quite what it seems to be, but regardless, I think you and I are definitely on the same page on the communication is important. Because if I get this call from you and you're like, yeah, you know, they're pre-approved with so-and-so, that means enough. I don't need anything more. I can say to my clients, I talked to the agent, they're pre-approved, because I know that you're you know, I know your experience,
I get it, yeah.
you know, and so I think that the communication, circling back to that, is really important, and that does seem to be lost with a lot of people because they're not picking up the phone to have some of these conversations that you need to have, and you can't relay everything, I don't think, in email and text.
No, you can't, and it's frustrating. And you know, when you're like, I was trying to bring a deal together the other day, and I call the agent, nothing. I text it, nothing. Well, how am I supposed to get a deal if you're not picking up the phone? So I don't know if it's because communication needs to change. This is someone's biggest investment. And I believe who you work with does matter. And it's not about being pretty.
No.
I don't know if you saw my latest billboard, but you want cute, scroll Instagram. Anyway, there's just so much turbulence in our market. And I believe, you know, a buyer expectation, I believe is very high for what they're expecting for in a house. And I believe that a seller's expectation is overly high for the amount of money that they're hoping to get.
Yes. I do think that even though we're not nearly in that same situation that we both were in the market for when it was the buyer's market, going back a decade plus, where there was tons more inventory than now in the market, less buyers than now, but the prices kind of held. They didn't drop dramatically, but the buyers, they wanted it to be right. So when people would say things like, oh, it doesn't matter if you paint, it did matter. And I think we're kind of getting back to more of that. Like, does it really matter if you redo your powder room on your main level? It might these days, depending on the property. And
you're right. So before COVID, you need a little bit of lipstick.
Yeah.
During COVID,
you just need
you're
a
good.
house. Yeah.
And but now I have a one home that's $399, and I recommend it. You should paint, right? But I believe though it depends on the home. So I have another one that's $475,000, needs work, and she goes, "Well, what do you think I should do, Sandra?" And I'm like, "Nothing."
Yeah.
Because you're not going to make your rate of return.
Yep.
Like she said, maybe I should put the roof on, and a roof could be 20 grand.
Yeah.
Right, on a bungalow. And I'm like, no, I don't think you need to do that, because the price is set at that expectation. But again, if the semi that I have for $399, a buyer does want to come in and just drop their stuff. Even if it's at $699, a buyer just wants to come in. So I don't think it does matter what the price point. I think it matters the house.
Yeah. I agree. I think that the buyers also don't have that sense of urgency, because we are seeing inventory increase.
Yep.
They'll wait. They've seen stuff come and go at this point. So they'll wait. And even if they like a house, and I find this myself, I have clients that we go in, we see something, it's perfectly fine. It's not special. It's fine. Do they want it? Not enough to write on it. No. Maybe they'll want it. If it goes, they're not, I always do that. If I have to call you and tell you that it has an offer, are you upset? And they're like, nah. Honestly, maybe we're relieved that we don't have to make the decision. We don't have to think about it anymore, because they know more listings are coming. So
what was it just these? What was the difference between the buyer mentality during COVID? And I don't want to, and I'm just talking local buyers. What was the buyer mentality? What's the difference in their headspace? They had to have a house during COVID.
In COVID, you had to have a house. I think it was a perfect storm, because interest rates were really low, so more people could get approved for more money. And here in Nova Scotia, we had lower priced homes. People were getting how many people did we have move from federal jobs from Ontario? Yeah. And they could move out here and work remote. So there was that aspect of things. So we had not only immigration, we had migration, we had a lot of things going on at the same time. And we only have so many homes here. We were not building on the scale that the studies have shown that we need to build to grow at the rate of growth that we're having. So it was limited. So it was it goes back to basic supply and demand, I think, at that time. And so you were just grateful to get a home. I don't know, some of my buyers, I don't necessarily keep track of how many offers were written for some buyers, during that time. I know that more than, I got into, I guarantee, over 20 homes that we were in 6 figures over ask and didn't get it. 3 homes, $250,000 over ask that we didn't get. I did keep those 2 numbers. 3 different times, 3 different sets of clients, 3 different houses, $250,000 over asking, did not get it. Which, that we just don't have that pent up amount of buyer activity anymore, because, interest rates are down a little bit from what they peaked at, but they're only so. But inflation has done a monster jump. So life is just more expensive. People that are in homes, there's less of that, we're going to sell and move to our next home, because they just don't want to up their expenses, up their prices necessarily. They're just kind of getting by. And the disparity is, I am from out west originally, and the disparity is there in that, 15 years ago, it was very achievable for almost anyone to buy a home. And we're unfortunately moving away from that as the prices have gone up so much, because they just don't qualify. Because an entry-level home, even if we're looking at a semi-detached in the city in any kind of decent shape, $400 kind of, and it probably needs some work at that price. Yeah. Right? And that's tough to save for.
But our so let's say first-time home buyers, is the realtor not setting them up, their expectations up for, because I think that happens a lot. the expectation is not being set that when you're looking at this price point, this is what to expect.
Yep.
Because a single family home at 400 and a semi at 400, the semi at 400 should be in better shape than.
Correct. Yeah.
So I don't know if the buyers are being coached properly.
I think that there could be a strong argument made that they're not.
Yeah.
Just from what I personally have been seeing in the market, because then they'll have an inspection and they'll point out things that were obvious, right? A broken window seal. Well, you could see it. It was there. Yeah. This should not be new information for you. On the other side, what you might not see is if the attic is full of a ton of mold. Although I do tend to tell clients that mold is in, 18 out of 20 homes or something like that. So, but
And it's a $2,000 fix.
yeah, exactly, to be remediated with a warranty. So it's not but what bothers me is when people come back and they say things that, and even sometimes things that have been talked about, during the negotiation process.
Yeah.
Where it was like, oh, I thought we talked about the fact that the deck was clearly end of life. And now an inspector has come and marked the deck as whatever. I'm like, we had that whole conversation.
You knew, but you'd see the deck when you're doing you're coming through the house. Like wouldn't you have based your price off that? Yeah.
And some people just don't know things too. So then they come to you and they're, let's say, we know that sonotubes are now a new regulation for decks over 4 feet, but it's a grand, there's tons that don't have the sonotubes. It is what it is, but decks need to be replaced, whatever. And then they come to you with well, it doesn't have sonotubes. Well, no, it's like a 25-year-old deck. That wasn't code at the time. It's not, and so I see a lot of that too, where just they don't necessarily know. And then something is like a big issue. And, it's not like your seller, the expectation isn't reasonable to expect the seller to go put sonotubes in. No. On a 25-year-old, post or whatever.
And I would say that I would find that when I was selling a home with Kitech, and I would tell the seller, I said, for me, it's all about who I'm dealing with on the other side. That because Kitech is Kitech, and the stats show that you have a better chance of your house being hit by lightning than you do your pipes leaking. But if I can't have a conversation with that real estate agent on the other side, I can't bring it to home plate.
Yeah.
And that's what's frustrating. So I started pre-inspecting. Yeah. And, what are your thoughts of that? I mean, you're going to do your own home inspection anyway.
Yeah, I've got mixed feelings on the pre-inspection. Part of me thinks they're going to likely do their own inspection.
Of course.
Anyway, right? So, in some cases, it's I don't know. To go through it, are you saying that then they have to accept the condition of certain things because they're not being able to interact with it like they would an inspector? So they might see, okay, well, this is like this, but maybe it's more, they might not understand the full extent. So then it's going to frustrate let's use a scenario. If someone looks at it and they're like, okay, fine, they initial away their pre-inspection, they give it back to you, and then they come back on an issue that was in there. Right? Because now they might understand it more. I think you might be setting up, the sellers are going to be annoyed. You're going to be annoyed because you're you was there.
I'm annoyed anyway, just to be honest.
No, but I think it might set up a little bit more tension in some cases because the buyer's agent is well, now we understand more because maybe they didn't have that, to kind of go back to some of what we were saying, maybe they didn't have that education. A lot of the time, if you're a COVID realtor, you didn't necessarily see a whole lot of it, inspections because you were waiving them for your clients for whatever reason.
Yep.
To get your offers accepted or whatever you thought you had to do. So I do think that could be setting up some tension because they feel well, we initialed it, but we did our own, and now that we were able to talk to inspector and understand it in a way that we didn't before because maybe the agent didn't know the full scope or maybe it wasn't in there. So now the sellers are annoyed because they're well, you waived it. The agents are going to be butting heads over it because well, now we understand it more. So, but on the other hand, in concept, I understand because it's great, you'll get over the big, the major things because we shouldn't really kill a deal on little things. It should only be major stuff and you should be made aware of the major stuff.
So what would you consider major stuff?
Major stuff would be you'd want the people to go in eyes wide open if you have certain things, if a deck is end of life, it might not be falling down.
You see that. You don't need a home inspection to tell you
that.
It's
true, roof, because sometimes shingles look okay, but there's soft spots or whatever. Yep. Anything that there might be leaks or water damage, anything to do with the systems. like if your heating is, end of life. Like, but then this is where I can make the argument, and I had this recently, actually, in the last couple of months, where an agent came back to me on the house was built in 93. It had a furnace was original. After inspection, she's like, wanted money off because the furnace was 1993. And I was like, well, it was the entire time, right?
Yeah.
So, like stuff like that, you're just kind of like,
So are agents using that as a tactic?
I think so in some cases. I think in some cases it's naive, and in some cases it's their strategy.
So I want to be, and this is what I've started doing, is that if there's an issue in a home inspection, you bring it up to me the day before we're supposed to go firm. Because the seller has to do their own due diligence. Yes. So let's say if there was something that I didn't find in a home inspection, like, well, I don't know, whatever, something that we missed, hypothetically. The seller needs to have their own due diligence. But I tell my buyers when I have them that a home inspection isn't meant to beat up a seller on price. It's meant to address any items that are big so that we can try to come together.
Eyes wide. Well, and remember back in the day, to age ourselves a little bit in this industry, when I gave you an amendment before, you could kill the deal on it. So people thought, so that's how I started in the industry, where if we wrote an amendment, my clients had to basically be prepared to walk over it because the seller could kill the deal. Well, that's gone away years ago now. So now if I write you an amendment, worst you can say is no.
Yeah.
Right? So people will swing for the fences because the consequences aren't perceived to be too high. They'll try.
Yep.
But, maybe they're going to intend to buy it anyway. Maybe they're not. Maybe they have their line in the sand that they were going to pay, but because it was competition, they put it a little higher, and now they're like, I don't actually want to pay that.
Yeah, and do you think there's a lot of buyer remorse due to coaching not being received?
I think it can be. I also think, and especially this was a big one when the interest rates went up, that I saw from not just my own experience, but like other, like, with the team, you see lots of things, right? And I think what was happening is people were going and they were being good agents, good buyers. They would go and get their pre-approval. They'd be like, great, you're good for $600,000. And then, go ahead. And so they come back and they get their, they get their house under, like the house under offer for $585, and they send it off and they're like, we're going to be so good because we're under, and good for you. And then they come back and they were told, great, so your payment is going to be $2,800 a month. And they go, what? We can't do that. And I think that was happening a lot because they didn't understand what is that payment associated with it. All they were focused on was how much money could we afford,
but
technically.
A good mortgage broker, though, is looking at the debt service ratio.
Good mortgage broker is. That's an excellent point. However,
yeah,
some people are just focused on their approvals, maybe, like what the best interest rate is, and they don't actually understand what does that mean on the cost month to month. And I think that we saw a lot of when deals were falling on finance. So I think that was a lot in 2023 when there was that shift, maybe the back half of 2022. And in 2023, I think that happened a ton where people technically were able to get approval, but once they saw what it was, they're like, I can't afford that. I'm going from an apartment that I'm renting at $1,800 a month, and now to buy a home, $1,000 more a month. Like it wasn't feasible.
I would say absolutely, but I would blame that on the mortgage broker for sure. It's not just about, you see the Facebook, who do you recommend for a mortgage broker? And it's all this big popularity contest. And even the same for realtors. There's names there I've never heard.
My favorite was when it's their own name.
But it's, I believe from a mortgage broker to a realtor to your inspector and whomever, I think it's more important now who you work with than ever before.
I agree. Because I think too, if you have an experienced agent, they're also going to say like, okay, great, you're approved for 600. What does that look like? Because that's what I do with my clients. Yeah. And if they can't tell me like, oh, what's your payment on that? They're like, oh, I don't know. Oh, you need to go back to the mortgage broker and then have the conversation a little bit more thoroughly, right? Yeah. But usually if it's working with one of my network, I know that I'm good because they've gone through all that. But I do think that was like the back half into 2022, 2023. And I think now the issues that we're facing are less on the finance side and more on the inspection and what is a reasonable thing. Sometimes in compromise, nobody's super happy, right? Like,
No.
unfortunately, like the buyer maybe doesn't get everything that they want, and the seller, who doesn't want to have to do anything extra, might have to bend a little on price, do a little bit of a repairing, whatever. And sometimes that is the way to get both parties truly, satisfied at the end of the day, but they might not be happy about it.
Yeah, I agree. It is a lot of compromise. So, Jack, I know you're into selling new construction, and the proposed D-transfer tax. You have, HRM, Halifax Water, wanting to put an extra, tax on the, or cost on getting the land or the water out to subdivisions, and plus all the rest of the, so what's the sentiment like with you and, your partner when you're talking about sales for new construction? Because if this goes, like the average house, let's say $500 for an $800,000 home increase, not a lot. However, if you keep going plus, so, what's being said?
I do not like the proposed changes. I think that the city already makes a ton. The fact that we've doubled in our average price in the last 6 years in Halifax means that they're getting more property taxes than ever.
Yep.
So I don't, and then of course the assessments have jumped. So therefore they're getting more taxes so they're already getting so much money from the home owners. It doesn't really seem proportionally fair. I think they're already, you're getting a percentage, which means you're already getting more money from those homes that are priced higher to begin with, right? So in principle, I don't, it's hard for me to get on board because they do make such a huge amount of money from these taxes that are, in some areas, it's a flat fee to do a deed transfer, right?
So when they're talking about the deed transfer, this is the only thing I didn't do homework on. Because is that going to be all across Nova Scotia? It's going to be the same, or is it just for HRM?
This would be it would be by county. So this would be Halifax.
So it just makes no sense what they're doing.
Not in my opinion. I think they're already, it's a percentage. So when they're like, oh, we want to make sure everyone's paying their fair, okay, great. How about we make it a percentage? It already is, right? So why does it have to be a higher percentage? On the luxury market, who's buying luxury homes? Tends to be people that have either extremely good paying jobs or a lot of people in business and things, which tend to be injecting into the economy in lots of different ways.
Yeah.
So why are we penalizing them by if their residence is not here full time, they've got to pay an extra 10%. And now we want to charge them 2.5% on their deed transfer.
And
over $2 million.
And it's crazy. But again, but even at, 700,000 is where you break even, right? And so this is really good for anybody from, 600 to 300. Giddy up, like you are saving money with the D-transfer. So I think that's really good. And but forget about just penalizing the buyer. How about that seller who needs to sell? Death, divorce, financing, like there's several reasons why people, and in that price point, the market's already slow there anyway.
Yep.
So why are you doing, do they not understand? They meaning the government, not understand, this is the 9% of the inventory this month have sold.
And to me too, it's laughable as well because how many homes actually fall into these values up here, of the real savings? Up to 1,000.
So I would say, between 500 to 7. Right?
That's really the only time. So, a max of and even then, it's minimal, I would say at best.
Yeah.
I'm not against, any amount because I think that the amount that we pay is pretty exorbitant.
Yeah.
But I think it's pandering. People see these numbers and they're like, oh, this is good. So many people are going to be saving money. Nobody is saving this money because these homes don't exist anymore.
Even a mobile home, for goodness sake.
Those, those are creeped up in value. I remember in COVID, back in 2020.
Yep.
And one went in, I think it was Manor Estates for
$325, wasn't it?
No, the first one to go, that was $250, back before, but when you could only really break 100 in on Lucasville. Yeah. And back in the early days.
I remember selling one for $65,000.
And
that fully renovated.
First open house I ever did. The thing was on the market for $18,000. Anyway, it was a minute ago.
I know, right?
But, so I think a lot of it is just vanity looking. It's oh, look, we're being so good for the people. But they know how many homes fall into this. So they know that's not going to be that much overall, right? And when it comes to things like the water, well, who do you think is going to have to pay extra from new homes? right? So
Yeah.
it just, I don't know. I feel like it's how much is it actually helping people versus how much is it hurting people. I don't think it's even close to equal.
No, I was ranting before. I'm kind of calm now, but I don't get it. I don't get the mindset, and we're in I call it the Cinderella market. You know, if the shoe doesn't fit, and now just going to add on top of it. But there has been no talk though about getting rid of the 10%.
I know, and I am so fascinated to see the numbers because in my own, like from what I saw, I had a few clients with the 5%. Go ahead and buy. Begrudgingly, they didn't love it because 5 plus the 1.5 deed transfer, so it was 6.5% total. Didn't love it, but they had their reasons. Nobody, for me, like anyone that was in that, as soon as they found out about it, they were like, oh no, like 11.5% at the closing table, you know, and they're not a resident, so they're putting down 20% anyway. So 31.5%, and you have, and only 20% of that is equity from the day that you buy in a market that the growth is slowing, of course. We can't keep up with the pace that we had. So why would they? If you have that money, put it somewhere else. Put it where you want it, like where you want it. It doesn't really say, come on in, right? So
No, it doesn't really say, come on in. And again,
are you not curious to see what the difference is? Because I think that they're going to make less money at the 10% than the 5%. And I really want to see those numbers at the end of the year.
well, I'm wondering if that's why they're changing the deed transfer tax, because they didn't see the money that they were anticipating.
That they expect, because they expected to see, like when I looked at the projections, and from my understanding, it was they were projecting basically the same amount, but at the 10% rate versus the 5%. And I think that they probably went backwards for them. I'm very curious to see those numbers when they come out.
It's funny. I was saying to Richard earlier, like, who the heck is doing their budgets and how are they projecting? I knew that I wasn't going to make the same money in 2023 that I did in 2022. And, you know, when I look at the market, I'm like, okay, I need to look at what my, you know, goal is for the team, what we're going to do. I got to readjust that because it's not going to be the same. Mm-hmm. Like, how do they not know?
I don't know. I don't know who's doing the advice or if it's just accountants and a team of hopefuls, but I do worry, you know, we still do have a housing crisis at the end of the day.
Affordable housing?
Yeah.
But that's the government has to build.
Well, just in general too, we don't have enough for people that want them. Like when it comes to, you know, that there's a big portion of the market, people that have decent jobs and, you know, let alone the people that are the most vulnerable in society. So to try and like do something that's going to put the brakes on growth, I think is really short-sighted.
I agree with you. And anyway, I digress. Just because I was very wound up with Richard. But anyway, it's I wish the government would just consult a bunch of realtors, get a bunch of realtors who are doing some business.
I mean,
sit down, have a
call us.
I know, you know, sit down and have a chat, and you know, this is what we're seeing. This is what's happening, and not just looking at whatever CMHC puts out, because I don't believe that CMHC is actually doing the proper stats either.
No, I agree with you. I mean, in Halifax, like we only now get honorable mentions. For the longest time, it was just like Atlantic Canada or just forgotten. Everything east of Montreal just didn't exist.
No.
Yeah.
Anyway. Well, I'm telling people I'm coming back November the 14th. Are you in?
Yeah. Let's do
it. So what do you think we should talk about in November?
I think we should take a look at maybe the inventory trends. So where we've seen the most growth, the most days on market sitting. I mean, we're both stats girls, so I think let's get into some of those, like people like those numbers. I think to hear what, you know, where the maybe bigger opportunities, where is more inventory sitting, you know, and take a look at, are they taking, you know, what prices are people taking? Is there any actual evidence that people are taking less than, you know? And
I have done those numbers, so that'll be, we can sit down, and I want you to look, and I don't know if I sent them to you. If I haven't, I will. I want us to, you know what, I think I need to go back to 2012 and look at the market from when we had the ship start here and what happened after the 5 years. I'll make myself a note. But yeah, that would be, I think we need to analyze, because I just think history repeats itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's take a look. Yeah, I think it's good to get into like.
I think we should look at that.
Look at the data.
Well, I appreciate you coming out. I know you had to travel far, a couple of streets over.
From the south side to the west side.
I know. Welcome to. Anyway, thank you once again, Jackie.
No problem.